Two guys at the top of the show, and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin's, which means you got to make a switch. Brought to you by the new Boost Mobile 5G network. We're talking about a player that maybe could see some fantasy relevance again in Jauan Jennings.
This could be wide receiver one, yeah. So I don't know if you have any specific updates, Stephania, on Jauan.
Just that they're, hopeful. I mean, they're really hopeful now.
Really hopeful.
They're really hopeful because obviously he missed last week with what was called a hip injury, but I think they didn't believe it to be long-term absence, and the hope is it'll be this week that he returns.
We're going to sort of play this game under the idea that Jauan Jennings will play on Sunday night when they play the Dallas Cowboys, who this year, you may recall, have been terrible on defense. But we've had one game, just one this year, in which Jauan Jennings was a top 2 wide receiver for the 49ers in terms of utilization and snap counts, right? In that game, he played 83% of the snaps. He had 12 targets. He had 11 catches. He had 175 yards. He had 3 receiving touchdowns. The Rams are still sore from that game against the 49ers, in which he was absolutely masterful, as in the most fantasy points by any player in a single game this season, regardless of position. It's not going to be that good, right? But obviously, if Debo and Ayuk is out, obviously he's out.
Yes.
But if Debo is out as well, then we're talking about, I think, a top 20 wide receiver.
Yeah.
I have priority add on waivers, and by the way, I think it's a priority add, as it were, because it's obviously, Ayuk's going to be done for the rest of the season. We can talk more about some other wide receivers in that offense, but a top 2 Jauan Jennings could be a top 25 to 30 wide receiver the rest of the way.
Yeah, and when they were dealing with Debo, being injured, that's what gave rise to Jauan Jennings. I mean, he's always been an outlet for them, and again, they re-signed him because they knew how he meshed in this offense. But when they're down a receiver, his role immediately elevates.
Without about it, he is a very, very important part of their team. We can talk about Ricky Pearsall a little bit as well. He would be the other next man up. 5 targets last game, season debut, NFL debut, obviously. But, if you had Ricky Pearsall as the most likely to be healthy on your 49ers depth chart, 2 months ago, the guy literally,
he was
life-altering event, and he's now the healthiest wide receiver. It's just
unreal.
Insane right now.
Unbelievable, and it's a great human interest story, obviously. We're just thrilled that he's back out here and doing things, but hopefully he can do some stuff for us here in fantasy football because this 49ers team, like you said, Stephania, may be just scrounging around the bottom of the barrel from their roster, trying to figure out who they can start after they had their 2 superstar wide receivers potentially go down.
I know.
It's one.
Quick question for you guys. This is totally anecdotal as I think about these wide receiver switches. these quarterback switches. Because I have Jaden in a couple of leagues, and I am trying to make some replacements here. Do you feel like people already have 2 quarterbacks already?
I know that I changed my strategy because I'd seen so many quarterbacks get injured last year that by the time it cycled through, I wanted to make sure I had someone who I thought could be trustworthy and not have to resort to streaming. You did not do that.
My options stink right now behind Jaden. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm like...
Well, we play in some of the same leagues, so I feel good about that decision.
We play in some deeper leagues, too, which makes it tough.
Yeah.
But I 100% agree with you. I actually felt like I've been doing the best that I can to roster 2 quarterbacks when I can, but part of the problem is it feels like half of my bench is already players that have an O or an IR next to them, and I just can't waste more roster spots on a guy that I'm not even going to potentially start as just like a secondary option. So it's been brutal so far this year.
It has been, yeah.
I know.
Love it.
Can I end on a positive note on this segment?
Yeah, please.
Because we're getting ready to talk about wide receivers pickup. Guess who's coming back this week?
Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, yay! We love having Cooper Kupp back. And Sean McVay said he does not know how much of volume of work it'll be. And Wednesday, it's only been a walkthrough. Wednesday will be a real practice, but they're very excited about having him back on the field.
Right.